Hey, this is Jody with weldingtipsandtricks.com. I'm doing something a little bit different today. I'm going to be using this Hobart Handler 210 MVP Mig Welder to weld up this bumper kit from Swag Off-Road. Now, what do they have to do with one another? Well, Swag Off-Road is known for its innovative products, off-road products, and fabrication tools, and Hobart is getting more and more involved in the off-road community, so I thought it would be a good match. And one thing that makes this machine really cool is Hobart also makes this little portable CO2 cylinder kit. It's like a paintball CO2 bottle that attaches with a bracket to the back of the small machine, and you can get it filled at a Dick's Sporting Goods or any other paintball type place. You can get it filled on a weekend. Another thing is it's got a multi-voltage plug. That's what the MVP stands for. So I can swap from 115 volt to 230 volt in about 10 seconds just by taking one plug off, putting the other plug on, plugging it in the wall. That makes it very versatile and very portable. It's small. It's not much bigger than a hog welding helmet, as you can see here. Night-night hog welding helmet. All right. It's portable. It's not light as a feather, but it can be hauled without using some kind of engine hoist or something, as you can see. And you probably don't want to walk up 20 flights of steps with this thing on your shoulder because it's beefy, but it is portable. Now, Northern Tool and Hobart have agreed to a deal where anybody viewing this video can use the coupon code 210MVP for a discount from Northern Tool and get a $50 discount on this machine. All you need to do is click the blue link under this video. It'll take you to northerntool.com, enter promo code 210MVP for the discount. Now, anybody who's on the fence about whether or not to get a 115 volt or a 230 volt MIG, this would be a good choice for, because you can do both and you won't have to upgrade later on. Okay, to the meat of the video. We're going to weld this Swag Off-Road bumper kit using the Hobart Handler 210 MVP. That's what it's about today. Now, this little bumper kit is cool too. It's well designed, well thought out. A lot of engineering went into it, especially in just the way it goes together. And the one thing I like about Swag Off-Road is that they are a very reputable company. They tell you it's made out of 1/4 inch high-strength steel. By gosh, it's made out of 1/4 inch. There's no scrimping. And the main body of this thing is made out of high-strength steel that's been bent on a CNC press brake. And you got this shroud here that's got an emblem on it, and it's also dimple die press for rigidity. So the first thing I'm going to do putting this thing together is make a center line, make some lines with a silver Sharpie marker, and I like my lines to go outside the tubing where I can view the whole line where the tubing doesn't hide them. And you can see these press brake lines, they just serve as kind of like hash marks to help you eyeball and get everything straight without even having to measure really half the time. So the thing puts itself together basically. So once I got a center line on there and put the main trailer, the hitch receiver dealio on there, I put the shroud up there, clamped it to that, lined everything up just with the eyeball, and then started just putting it together like a puzzle. And that's the cool thing. That's where the innovation takes place. The little shroud there is rolled over, and it holds the support tubes here in place without having to clamp them and eyeball them and do all kind of things with angle magnets and whatnot. And just using these pony clamps, you can see it's all ready to go. Now I could just weld it up right here, just like this. Tack. The man said tack, so we're ready for a tack weld. So to set the machine, the machine's got a cool little chart in it like this, and I figured I'd set it because it's got different thicknesses. It's got 1/8 inch, it's got 1/4 inch, it's got 3/4 inch. So I set it for the settings for about 1/4 inch, and then got some scrap, made sure the settings were right, and they are dead nuts. Pretty smooth arc, wouldn't you say? Pretty smooth. So we're ready to go. So what I want to do is get a bunch of tacks on this thing, a whole bunch of tacks with that shroud holding everything in place. And wait just a dang minute. I know I used to have more hair than that. That's depressing. Okay, back to task. Bunch of tacks. These little toe lugs here, get 4 tacks on them. Don't even have to worry about straightening them up or indicating them because they are indicated with a laser cut slot. They just fall into place, and I'll show you that a little bit later on. Got a little bit out of sequence here. Once it's all tacked everywhere I could get a tack, I'll just pull the shroud off, and we'll talk about the weld sequence here, how we're going to do this. All right, so I want these welds to, the welds at least on the tubing, to be fairly flush, because I don't want to have to grind a whole lot where that shroud goes on there. But this one right here, I can see I want to weld fully that trailer receiver hitch, and so I'm probably going to have to cope that shroud when I'm all done. This is the weld on there, set good and hot. I'm tracing the puddle, especially the front leading edge of the puddle. I want to take that arc to the front of the puddle each loop, and make sure I cut into new base metal each loop. Now, I use this little looping technique. I've been using it for a good 30 years now, and the reason is because it just works. Just one of those things, like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's kind of like my go-to move. Just a series of cursive E's or U's, whatever you want to, depending on how far you come back in the puddle, how much you want to build up. It's just been working for me for a lot of years, so I still use it. Whether I push or pull, I use that little technique, and I try to stay kind of on the front edge of the puddle. Each motion takes me to the front edge of the puddle where I cut into new base metal each time. And so that leaves me with a decent looking weld all the way around on that. I want to get some weld on these tubes now. I don't want to build up a whole lot on there because that shroud's going to set flush against there. So those welds are pretty much flush. And then I want to weld the outside of these tubes here before I get carried away. Now, I sped this up, but you can see on a round tube like this how you have to reposition your body and move a lot to maintain a line of sight on the arc and whatnot. That's what makes welding round things kind of hard. Now, here's how the laser cut slots work for the toe lugs. And you can see you just pop them in there. There's no fit up, there's no alignment, there's no indicating. Just put them in there and line them up. I decided to weld them from both sides, and I decided to weld a big, long, wide weave across them like this because I want to weld them, and I also want to preheat them. And this weld is going to, by going all the way across like this, is going to get that thing plenty hot so that the next weld is preheated and then penetrates just fine. So I put a pretty decent looking weld on those all the way around. I'm going to wrap these tubes all the way around here before I put the shroud on. It's always good on MIG welding to ground directly to the part, because the wire is going to come out regardless. Doesn't care if you lose your ground momentarily. The wire is going to keep coming. It's going to stub. I don't always remember to do it, but it is always best to ground directly to the part when you're MIG welding. Alright, I'm going to have to cope this shroud because I wanted to get the structural part of this thing fully welded. I didn't just want to put it all together and weld it and then not have it be as strong as it could be. So I'm doing a little work with the little portaband stand there. Now that I've got the weld all the way around everywhere on the beefy structural part of it, I coped it out a little bit where I could tie everything together. And then I clamped it all tight, and now I'm welding it all together. Again, my little go-to move here with the little series of U's or cursive E's. And then here where I coped it out, or where I trimmed it, I got a little gap to fill in. So you can see I'm going much slower, pausing at the top because I'm filling in a little groove. That's just the way it works. And once that's done, I'm going to go downhill on these little things here to tie everything in. You got to reposition your body pretty quickly when you're wrapping around a tube like that going downhill. Then I'll put these little gussets on there. You can see again they're dimple die punched to add rigidity. Welded those all up, and then the last thing to do is just weld all the slots up in the thing, and then it's just done. So it's an awesome bumper. It goes together like a puzzle, and it's very easy to put together. Now, a lot of you watching this are probably thinking, I know how YouTubers are. You're like, I was watching that, you weren't penetrating. Well, the angle of the camera sometimes is deceiving. I was watching from another angle, you were watching from a different angle. So I decided to get some 1-inch thick block and some 1/4 inch thick here, and I'm going to run a bead on it at the same settings that I ran those toe lugs on, which is pretty good and hot. Now you're watching from behind here, but I'm watching from the leading edge of the puddle, so I'm seeing what's going on. All right, well, there's the weld. Nothing to write home about. But what I did is I sliced it here with the bandsaw, and then I shined it up a little bit using a pretty fine grit, like about a 120 grit sanding disc here. Got all those rough sawtooth marks sanded off of it. Use a little swab etch, some nitric acid mixture here. And there, it did penetrate, and it penetrated pretty well. So when Hobart tells you it'll weld 3/8 in a single pass, you can pretty much hang your hat on that. All right, here's a run using that CO2 setup plugged into the 115 volt outlet, just to show you how that works, because somebody emailed me and asked me about that, and I'll tell you, it's got some muscle even on 115 volt with that CO2 bottle. So you can get your discount on this thing either on the phone or online, but just make sure to use the promo code 210MVP to get the $50 discount if you're interested in a good little portable MIG welder at this point in time. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's video. That is the Hobart Handler 210 MVP and the Swag Off-Road Big Hit Wrangler rear Jeep bumper. I can, without reservation, recommend both of these products today because they both impressed the crap out of me. All right, well, thanks for watching, and visit weldingtipsandtricks.com when you get a chance.